She did not come to Seoul to be found. Adaeze Okonkwo stepped through the glass doors of Incheon International Airport with a single suitcase, wireless earbuds leaking Afrobeats, and one clear intention: to be nobody. For the first time in 26 years, she wanted to walk through a city where no one turned to look at her and thought, that is the senator's daughter. No cameras. No obligations. No carefully arranged future waiting for her like a cage someone had decorated to look like a gift. She was beautiful in the way that made strangers stare, tall, dark-skinned, natural hair pulled into a high puff, her face bare of any makeup she did not choose herself. But today, beauty was not the point. Freedom was. She paused at the floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the city. Seoul stretched out in the gray morning light, glass towers pressing against ancient mountains, highways weaving between old stone neighborhoods, a city that had survived everything and still refused to be quiet about it. She pressed her fingertips against the glass. "Nobody knows me here," she whispered to herself. "Nobody." She smiled then, wide and real and unburdened, and walked into the city that was about to change everything. The guest house in Hongdae was her choice deliberately. Not a five-star hotel with a concierge who would recognize her name. Not the kind of place where a senator's aide might track her down. Just a narrow building on a colorful street, with murals on every wall and indie music playing softly from somewhere inside. The kind of place where people came to start over. She was dragging her suitcase down the corridor, checking her phone for her room number, when she turned the corner and walked straight into someone coming the other direction. The collision was absolute. Her phone flew. His coffee went everywhere, hot and dark brown and completely, catastrophically all over her cream coat. She gasped. He froze. She looked up. Kim Junho was 28 years old, lean and long-limbed, with paint-stained jeans and an oversized black hoodie and dark hair that had not seen a comb recently. His eyes were the kind of brown that looked almost black in dim light, striking and slightly startled, staring down at her now with an expression that moved through shock, horror, and something else she could not yet name, all in under 3 seconds. He reached into his hoodie pocket, produced a crumpled paper napkin, reached toward her coat, then stopped, his hand hovering inches from her chest, as both of them became very aware at the same moment of exactly how close he was. "Are you," she said slowly, "about to wipe me?" He pulled his hand back like he had touched a flame. Held the napkin out instead. She took it with a look that was not quite a smile but was getting there. "Nice save." He apologized. Twice. She noticed he had the kind of voice that was quiet but carried, the sort of voice that made you lean in slightly without meaning to. She noticed this the way you notice weather changing. Involuntarily. He told her he lived in room 14. She told him she was in room 13. They stood in the corridor for a moment, the coffee still dripping. Neighbors. Neither of them moved away. "Before we continue, I just want to take a moment to appreciate you. The fact that you've made it this far into the story tells me you're feeling exactly what I wanted you to feel. This one is special, and you being here makes it worth every single hour I put into it. If this story has you hooked right now, please tap that like button. It takes 1 second and it means the world to me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time, because trust me, you do not want to miss how this ends, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next on this channel. Drop a comment below and tell me, are you Team Adaeze or Team Junho? Now let's get back to the story. She found him on the rooftop that night. She had not been looking for company. She had poured herself a glass of wine, wrapped herself in a cardigan over a silk burgundy dress, and climbed to the terrace to be alone with the city lights. Seoul at night was something else entirely, glittering and layered, sound drifting up from the streets below like music from a room you have not yet been invited into. He came through the rooftop door with a sketchbook under his arm and a tin of pencils. When he saw her, he stopped. "I didn't think anyone would be up here," he said. "You apologize a lot," she said, for someone who doesn't seem sorry. He almost smiled. He moved to the other side of the terrace and sat down and began to draw. She watched him for a moment, the way his hand moved, quick and certain, across the page, and then turned back to the city. Silence settled between them. But it was the kind of silence that feels like a conversation is already happening beneath the surface. "What are you drawing?" she asked eventually. "The skyline. I come up here every night. It looks different depending on your mood," he said. She turned fully toward him at that. "And tonight? What mood is it?" He looked up from the sketchbook. Looked at her. Then back at the skyline. "Complicated," he said quietly. She crossed the rooftop and sat beside him, not too close, but close enough to see the sketchbook. The drawing was extraordinary. Fine, exact lines, almost photographic, the kind of work that did not happen by accident. "You're really good," she said. "It's just a hobby," he said. "Liar," she said. He looked at her sharply. She was still studying the drawing. Something flickered across his face, the brief, involuntary expression of a person who has been seen more clearly than they were prepared for. They talked until the string lights swayed in the night wind and the city below them thinned into its late-night quiet. She learned that his name was Junho. He learned that hers was Ada. Just Ada, for now. And there was something in the way she said it, "for now," that told him there was more, but he did not push. Something told him there was more to him too. When she finally rose to go inside, she paused at the rooftop door and looked back at him. "Good night, Junho." He watched her go. Then he turned back to his sketchbook. Turned to a new page. And without entirely meaning to, he began to draw her face from memory. The days that followed had the quality of something being carefully, inevitably built. They started walking to the market together in the mornings. Not by arrangement, just both of them leaving at the same time, falling into step, and neither finding a reason to go a different direction. Mangwon Market in the early morning was alive with steam and color and the smell of sesame and grilling meat. Adaeze ate everything he handed her and refused to pretend she had not immediately loved all of it. He taught her to say things in Korean. She said them wrong in ways that made him press his lips together, trying not to smile. She caught him every time. "You're laughing at me." "I'm correcting you," he said. "There's a difference." "There is absolutely not." At a flower stall near the end of the market, he picked up a single yellow chrysanthemum and held it beside her face without warning, studying her with an expression of total seriousness. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Seeing which is more striking," he said. She went very still. He held the flower there for a long moment. Then he set it back on the stall without answering and kept walking. She stood there for half a second, heart doing something she had not given it permission to do, and then followed him. He never answered. But she had seen his face. He took her to his studio on the fourth day. It was a small rented room in a shared building in Mapogu, barely. Paint on the floor and canvases stacked 4 deep against every wall, a single bare bulb overhead and a second-hand chair in the corner. Beautiful in the way that raw, struggling things often are. She stepped inside and turned slowly, taking it all in. "This is incredible," she said. He watched her face carefully, looking, she understood later, for judgment he was too proud to ask for. He did not find any. She stopped in front of a large unfinished canvas. A woman, painted from behind, standing in rain in a foreign city, looking upward. Fine and lonely and achingly human. "She looks lonely," Adaeze said. "She is," said Junho. She turned to find him very close. Closer than she had realized. She did not step back. "Is she you?" He did not answer. She reached up and traced the edge of the painted silhouette with one fingertip. He watched her hand. Then her face. Then her lips. And when she turned toward him, they were already too close for the moment to be anything other than what it was. He cupped her face in his hand, gently, like she was something that could be undone. She felt her eyes close without deciding to close them. When she opened them, he was still watching her. He kissed her slowly. She kissed him back. His other hand found her waist and she gripped the front of his hoodie, and the whole thing deepened into the kind of kiss that rearranges something inside you, quietly and permanently, so that nothing after it is quite the same shape it was before. When they finally broke apart, he kept his forehead pressed to hers. Both of them breathing differently. "I don't know anything about you," he said. "I know," she said. "That should bother me." "Does it?" He answered by kissing her again. This time neither of them was careful about it at all. The weeks that followed were the kind that lodge themselves somewhere behind your ribs and stay there. They wandered through Gyeongbokgung Palace dressed in rented hanbok, Junho's fingers working slowly at the tie of her jeogori until she had to remind herself to breathe. They sat on a picnic mat by the Han River at sunset, her head eventually migrating to his shoulder without either of them commenting on it. They found a late-night pojamika tucked under a bridge and stayed too long and drank a little too much soju and laughed at things that would not have been funny sober and were perfect anyway. He sketched her constantly, at the cafe, on the rooftop, once while she was asleep on his studio couch, her hair spread across the cushion, completely unaware. She found that drawing weeks later and held it for a long time without speaking. She photographed everything. Not for Instagram. For herself. The city through a rain-blurred window. His hands around a coffee cup. The skyline from their rooftop at 2 in the morning. Small, private documents of a life she was actually living. She did not post a single one. One evening she sat on his bed flipping through his old sketchbook, with permission this time, while he worked at his small desk. She turned a page and found it, a sketch of her face. Detailed, from memory, from the night they met. "When did you draw this?" she asked. "The night after we met," he said, without looking up. She looked at it for a long time. Warmth and guilt in equal measure moved through her, because she understood then what he had given her, the honest, unguarded version of himself that he showed almost no one, and she had not yet given him the same. "Junho," she said. "Can I tell you something?" He turned. Waited. The words sat at the edge of her mouth, her real name, her father, all of it. She swallowed them. "I'm really glad I spilled that coffee," she said instead. He stared at her for a moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face, the rare, real kind, and he crossed the room and sat beside her and took her hand and said, very seriously, "I spilled it on you. Get it right." She was still laughing when he kissed her. He lowered her gently back against the pillow and she pulled him close and Seoul hummed outside the window and the night deepened around them. The morning her father called 9 times, she was still half asleep. She saw the screen. Saw the name. And felt, in the space of one breath, the whole free architecture of the last 3 weeks begin to crack at the edges. She stepped out onto the narrow balcony and called him back. He answered on the first ring. "Where are you?" His voice was the same as always, clipped and authoritative, the voice of a man who had spent 30 years having rooms go quiet when he entered them. Senator Adaeze Okonkwo did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He reminded her about the Nwachukwu family. About the engagement that was not yet formal but was understood by everyone in their world to be inevitable. About the obligations of being an Okonkwo, which apparently did not expire at 26. She stood on the balcony and looked through the guesthouse window at the door to room 14. Her chest hurt in a way she did not have language for yet. "I'll call you later, Dad," she said. And hung up before he could respond. That same morning, in a small rented studio in Mapo-gu, Junho stood in front of a half-finished canvas and listened to a voicemail from his gallery director. 2 months behind on studio rent. Card declined at the supply shop. Space available until end of month. The director's voice was gentle with it, apologetic, even, which somehow made it worse. Junho opened his banking app. 47,000 Korean wons. He put the phone face down on the paint-stained floor. Picked up his brush. Kept painting. This was the life he had chosen. He had chosen it with both hands, clearly, eyes open, the day he walked out of his father's house 2 years ago and did not look back. On the days when it was beautiful, when a canvas came alive at 2 in the morning, when Ada laughed at something and the sound of it rearranged the air in the room, he did not regret it for a single second. On days like this one, he pressed his teeth together and kept his hand moving and did not think about his father at all. Something shifted between them in the days that followed, quietly and then all at once. They still walked together. Still found each other on the rooftop. But there was a new weight to the silences, not uncomfortable, just heavier. As though both of them were holding something just off stage, just out of the light, and could feel the other doing the same. It broke open on an afternoon in Bukshan Hanok village. They walked slowly through narrow stone-walled lanes, traditional Hanok rooftops rising above them, the neighborhood golden and quiet in the late afternoon light. He had been watching her face for an hour. "You've been somewhere else all day." "I'm right here." "Physically," he said. She stopped walking. He stopped beside her. She told him her father had called. That there were plans for her at home. The kind of plans she had come to Seoul to forget existed. He asked what kind. She looked at him with everything she was not yet saying written clearly on her face. "The kind I didn't come here to think about." He did not push. He took her hand instead and they kept walking, and she held on tightly, and neither of them said anything else, but it mattered. It mattered that he took the hand. That night on the rooftop he asked her full name. He said it simply, that he had been drawing her face for weeks and still did not know her last name. The city was spread below them. She was sitting against his shoulder. She went still in the particular way of a person who has been asked the one question they have been quietly dreading. "If I tell you," she said, "things change." "Things already changed," he said. "The night we met on this rooftop." He reached up and tucked a loose coil of hair behind her ear. She caught his hand and held it against her cheek. Closed her eyes. "Okonkwo," she said. Barely a whisper. He went very still. He said her full name slowly, Adaeze Okonkwo, as though placing it somewhere careful inside him. And she watched his face change. Just slightly. The way a face changes when something that has been floating separately clicks into a shape it was not supposed to make. "Senator Okonkwo's daughter," he said. "Yes." She told him everything then, why she had come, what she had been running from, why she had hidden it. Not to deceive him. To protect the version of herself she was only just learning to be. He listened. Then he was quiet for a long time. "How long were you going to keep it from me?" "I wasn't keeping it. I was protecting it." "There's a difference?" "Yes," she said. "Because keeping it means I didn't trust you. Protecting it means I didn't want it to be the first thing you saw." He looked at her for a long time. Then, "I should tell you something too." And he did. His name was not just Junho. It was Kim Junho. His father was Kim Jae-won, Korean businessman, the one currently in a high-stakes trade dispute with her father's ministry. The one who had cost the deal $40 million in stalled contracts. He had walked away from that world 2 years ago and cut every tie. He was broke and painting alone in a rented room and he had not spoken to his father since. But his name was still Kim. The city hummed below them. The string lights swayed. Neither of them moved. "We are both running from our names," she said finally. He looked down at their hands, her dark fingers interlaced with his. He turned his palms upward and held on. "What do we do now?" "Tonight," she said. Nothing. Tonight we are just Adaeze and Junho. On a rooftop. In Seoul. He pulled her close. She rested her head on his chest. His arms closed around her and Seoul breathed below them, and neither of them said another word for a very long time. Her father's men arrived the next morning. A black SUV. Two men in dark suits standing on the pavement outside the guest house, patient and immovable. The front desk clerk flagged her down before she reached the door. She went straight to room 14. She told him quickly. Her father had sent people. They were waiting outside. She was not a child, they could not physically force her into that car, but Senator Adaeze Okonkwo had other instruments of pressure. Frozen accounts. Closed contacts. A political reach that extended into every corner of her life back home and some corners she had not even discovered yet. She had seen him use it before, on people who had disappointed him far less than she was about to. I don't want to go, she said. Her eyes were filling. He crossed the room. Took her face in his hands. Then don't. Not yet. It's not that simple. Nothing is simple. But you are standing in front of me telling me you don't want to go. That part is simple. She looked at him. He was steady in a way she had not expected from someone whose life was barely holding together. Or maybe that was exactly why, when you had already survived losing everything once, you knew what actually mattered. Tell me what you want, he said. Not what they want. Not what makes sense. What do you want? Her voice broke. You. I want this. Whatever this is. He kissed her then, urgent and full of everything unfinished between them. She gripped his shirt with both hands. He held her like she was something that might actually be taken from him. When they finally separated, she was crying, quietly, barely. Go and deal with your father, he said, his forehead against hers. Come back. You don't know that I will. I know that I'll be here. The Okonkwo family estate in Abuja was everything Seoul was not. Grand and immaculate, all marble floors and high ceilings and enormous framed portraits of men who had mattered in this country and intended to keep mattering. Adaeze had grown up inside these walls. She knew the exact weight of the silence in every room. Her father sat across from her in the main sitting room, silver-haired and commanding, wearing the expression he wore when he had already decided something and was merely permitting the conversation to take place for form's sake. He talked about the Nwachukwu family. About alliances and media reach and political legacy. He talked about what it meant to carry the Okonkwo name, which in his understanding meant it was a thing you owed rather than a thing you had been given. I am not a merger, Dad, she said. His jaw tightened. He moved to the window. Do not be naive, he said. Love kept this house standing for 30 years? She stood. Her eyes steady. I met someone in Seoul. The room went very still. His name is Kim Junho. What happened to her father's face in that moment was not anger. It was worse than anger. It was the particular stillness of a man who has just received information he already knows how to use. Kim Jae-won's son, he said. Very quietly. Yes. She confirmed it. Told him that Junho had walked away from his father, that he wanted nothing to do with the business or the politics or any of it. Her father listened. Let her finish. Then looked at her with the eyes of someone who has been in rooms full of powerful liars for 30 years. Or so he told you, he said. The words landed like a slap. He laid it out calmly. A Kim son, slumming it in a cheap guest house. Conveniently befriending the senator's daughter. Conveniently earning her trust. Conveniently positioned to learn everything she might confide. Had she considered, her father asked, that all of it, the paint-stained jeans, the struggling artist, the rooftop conversations, all of it, might have been a performance designed by a family that had every reason to want leverage over Senator Okonkwo? Adaeze stood very still and looked at her father. She looked at the portrait on the wall. Her mother's face. Her own, younger, standing beside her mother in white at a family function she could not remember. Her mother who had died when she was 12 and left her alone in these marble rooms with a father who loved her the only way he knew how, which was to turn her into a strategy. She walked out without another word. She was back in Seoul in 36 hours. No coat this time. Jeans and a simple blouse and her hair down and the particular expression of a person who has stopped running and started walking, towards something, not away from it. She called him from the arrivals hall. He answered on the second ring. Said her name. She exhaled like she had been holding her breath since Abuja. He was at the studio. She took a cab. When she pushed the studio door open, he was standing in front of a new canvas, and when he saw her his whole body went still in the way bodies do when something they have been tense about quietly releases. She crossed the room and walked straight into him. He wrapped his arms around her and held on. She told him her father knew. Told him what he had said, the theory, the accusation, the cold calculated version of Junho as a planted spy in paint-stained jeans. Then she pulled back and looked at him directly. Were you? His eyes held hers without flinching. You think I spilled coffee on a stranger in a guest house as a geopolitical strategy? Despite everything, she almost laughed. The absurdity of it, said aloud, punctured something. My father is very convincing, she said. Ada. I didn't know who you were when we met. I barely knew who I was. I came to Seoul to disappear too. Remember? She did remember. She looked at him, searching, needing it to be true, and finding, in his face, nothing that looked like performance. Just a man who had traded a comfortable life for a bare bulb and a paintbrush and was still not sure he had made the wrong choice. Our families are rivals, she said. Our families are rivals, he agreed. This is complicated. Everything worth keeping is, he said quietly. She took his face in both hands. Looked at him for a long moment. Then she kissed him, slow and deliberate and full of everything she had figured out in 36 hours in Abuja about what she actually wanted her life to be. When they broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. I have to call my father, he said. She pulled back, surprised. Whatever is between our families, I won't let it be the reason we fail. If there is a way to end it, I'll be the one to try. Even if it means walking back through a door I closed. She looked at him with something she recognized, distantly, as the beginning of a love she had not been prepared for. You'd do that? I'd do a lot of things for Ada. She pulled him back into her and the kiss deepened and he backed her slowly against the studio wall and her hands found his face and his found her waist and soul glittered outside the window and the bare bulb swayed slightly overhead. The canvas behind them, the lone woman in the rain, still unfinished. But on the easel beside it, a new painting, barely begun. Two figures. Backs to each other, facing the same city. It was later that evening, in the warm quiet of the studio, that everything shifted one final time. Junho was making tea. Adaeze sat with his old sketchbook open in her lap, moving slowly through the pages, buildings, cityscapes, strangers on the subway, a Han River at dawn. She turned a page. Stopped. A sketch. Old, the paper slightly yellowed at the edges, the lines from a different hand than the ones she recognized. A woman. Nigerian. Beautiful, clearly, even in pencil. Standing in front of a building that Adaeze had walked through her entire life, the doors she knew the weight of, the steps she had climbed since childhood. She knew the building. She knew those doors. She knew that woman. Junho. He came over with 2 mugs. Saw what she was looking at. Went completely still. Who is this woman, she asked. Her voice was strange to her own ears. A silence that stretched several seconds too long. Her name was Ngozi, he said carefully. She was a friend of my mother's. From years ago. He stopped. Something crossed his face, a thought arriving, connecting to other thoughts, forming a shape he had not seen before. That is my mother, Adaeze said. Adaeze Okonkwo. She died when I was 12. The mugs went down. The studio went very quiet. His mother, he told her, had spoken of a Nigerian woman for years, a friend from her year studying in Abuja in the early 90s, before the marriages and the children and the long separate lives. Her closest friend. The one who had taught her to cook jollof rice in a tiny shared apartment. The one she had lost touch with and never stopped mentioning. He crossed to the sketchbook. Turned several pages forward. Another drawing. 2 women, young, laughing, one Nigerian, one Korean, standing together in a university courtyard, their arms around each other's shoulders. My mother drew this, he said. I copied it into my sketchbook when she passed. 3 years ago. Adaeze stared at the drawing. Her mother's face, young, alive, laughing with her whole body the way Adaeze remembered she used to before she got sick. Beside her, a Korean woman she had never known, had never heard named, who had carried her mother's memory on a different continent for 30 years. They were best friends, she said. It was barely a sound. Before everything happened between our families. Before our fathers became enemies. It settled over both of them slowly. Their mothers had chosen each other. 2 young women, oceans apart in culture and language, in a shared apartment in Abuja in the 90s, learning each other's recipes and telling each other everything. They had been best friends. And then their husbands had turned into rivals, and the friendship had disappeared somewhere in the wreckage of it, and both women had carried the loss separately, quietly, until they were gone. And 30 years later, their children had crashed into each other in a guesthouse corridor. She never told me about a Korean friend, Adaeze said. My mother mentioned her until the end, Junho said. She said she lost her. She never said how. Adaeze looked at him. And in his face she saw it finally, not just the man she had fallen for in the preceding weeks, but the thread. The reason this city had felt like somewhere she was supposed to come. The reason she had trusted him before she had reason to. Something older than the 2 of them, trying to complete itself. Our mothers knew each other. And our fathers tore everything apart. She reached for his hand. He took it. Maybe that's why I ended up here, she said. Why you stayed. Maybe we were always supposed to find each other, he said. She turned toward him. He opened his arms. She walked into them and he held her, fully, completely, his chin resting on top of her head, and they stood like that while Seoul went on outside the window, indifferent and glittering and beautiful. Inside, 2 people holding something their parents couldn't, and that is beneath the Seoul sky. If this story moved you, if you felt something, even once, please give this video a like. It genuinely helps more people find this channel and these stories, and that is all I want. More people feeling what you just felt. Subscribe if you haven't already. Every single story I bring to this channel gets better than the last, and I promise you, what I'm building here is only just beginning. And please, leave a comment. Tell me your favorite moment. Tell me what broke you. Tell me what you're still thinking about. I am always in the comments and I genuinely love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying until the end. Stories like this only exist because people like you show up for them. I'll see you in the next one.